What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into the Sport Trap right here with Francisco Rojas, right here on 95.3 WCHE. You can listen online, 953WCHE.com, as well as on your radio dial, 95.3 FM. A bunch to get into on today's show. Look, I definitely want to hit on the Flyers and the Sixers. I mean, a lot has happened since the Sixers lost last weekend to the New York Knicks. I mean, that was just a horrid way to end the season there in that Game 4 against New York, getting swept. But Daryl Morey, since then, president of basketball operations for the Philadelphia 76ers, has been fired. Josh Harris and Bob Myers have both spoken, so I do want to play some audio from the press conference from this past week, so we'll get to that. Some of the injuries that the Flyers players dealt with throughout the playoffs, they came out yesterday or Thursday, and man, it's a really unbelievable list of what some of these players were dealing with, but just kind of, what some of the next steps for the Flyers offseason is. I want to, discuss that as well. So we'll Flyers, Sixers, Phillies, awesome comeback last night. Kyle Schwarber continues to mash the baseball. It was an awesome comeback for the Philadelphia Phillies last night against Pirates. A great start to the weekend for the Phils. They have a 3-game set against the Pirates. They actually did get 2 of 3 in, or they did win 2 of 3 against the Red Sox, but got the 3 games in with the Red Sox. Thursday wasn't looking great, but they still were able to play. Didn't rain, I guess, as much as they thought it would. So, but the Phils, huge comeback last night. And then the Eagles, their schedule came out, so want to discuss that as well. But I do want to start with the 76ers because Daryl Morey was fired, and I guess I'll go back. This is a weekly show, and I call it the Sports Wrap, so I do try to wrap up the week. And I do want to go back to last weekend where Game 4 happens. Look, when they were down 3-0, it's never happened in the NBA playoffs. A team to come back down 3-0. I mean, it's going to happen eventually. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it will happen at some point. I guess it's just in basketball, compared to the other sports like baseball and hockey, it's the teams make runs, and you see teams come back in series way more often than basketball, just because in basketball it's more par for the course with which teams actually come back from series, or which teams actually win and which teams don't. You don't often see upsets in the NBA playoffs. That doesn't happen as often as you see in the NHL and MLB. In MLB, so at some point an NBA team will come back. But if there was any team that was going to come back, it was not going to be the Sixers team. I just think that, Joel with the injuries and the way they lost, even lost Game 3, where I was like, and all the Knicks fans that were there in the Xfinity Mobile Arena, which is another thing where I just cannot stand the Knicks fans being in the building, but I guess it is what it is. But that was frustrating. But I just didn't think the Sixers team was going to do it. So did I think they were going to get trampled as bad as they did last week? Absolutely not. I did not think the Sixers were going to get trampled, whatever it was. I don't even want to think about what the score was. 144, 114. I mean, at one point in the game, they were down, I want to say, definitely at least 43. I want to say it was 45, 46 at one point. I don't think it ever got to 48 or 50, but I'm pretty sure at one point it was 45, 46. And I watched the entire first half, and then third quarter I went to get my family, pizza. It was Mother's Day, so we got pizza for my mom on Mother's Day, and at one point I think I was listening to Tom McGinnis on the radio, and I think they were down at one point at 45, and I didn't expect it to be that bad. I figured the Sixers would put up a better fight than that. I guess the Knicks got out to such a hot start. I mean, Miles McBride was just unconscious from three-point land. I mean, the Knicks in general were unconscious. Jalen Brunson, I mean, it's funny that, like, Brunson only ended up with 22 points, and Miles McBride ended up with 25. It felt like he ended up with, like, 45, but he didn't end up with 25. Towns, Hart, and Bridges all didn't get to 20 points. The most they had on their bench was Landry Shamet with 12 points. But they got a variety of scoring from different guys. It's funny to look at that. He had 144 points, and like not one guy had more than 25, and it felt like there were three guys that at least had at least 30 points. But I just didn't expect it to be that bad. The Knicks got out to such a hot start, and I did not expect it to ever be that bad to what happened to the 76ers. Just didn't expect that. So, really disappointing end to the season, especially coming off of the Celtics series where the Celtics series, you figured, I don't know if I necessarily thought that the Sixers were going to win this series against the New York Knicks. I thought it was a series that was going to go to 6 or 7. It could go either way, really. I'm disappointed with the way that, look, the Knicks are a good team. I mean, the Knicks are obviously the better team. Like, let's be real, overall. The McCain trade, I think, hurts the Sixers. You see how McCain's helping out the Thunder. The Sixers didn't get anything from their bench in this series at all. Quentin Grimes didn't really do much of anything. And, part of that is the bench's fault, but also part of that is Daryl Morey's fault. Like I said, constructing the team, only worrying about the starting five, only worrying about the superstars, and not caring enough about the bench. Whether that's a Josh Harris thing and being under the tax and trading McCain, whatever, that's a front office problem combined with the bench not being able to score. And the Knicks have a bench. You saw that in this series. The Knicks have a bench between Landry Shamet, between Mitchell Robinson, between Jordan Clarkson, Jose Alvarado. Those guys are able to help this Knicks team out because they have a really good bench. The Sixers had a non-existent bench in this series, and that was a huge reason as to why they lost the series. And so, that was really frustrating. And the Knicks, their starters were really good in this series too. Maxey wasn't good enough. I understand he was dealing with an injury, but Maxey wasn't good enough. Joel, and he was available. He was good, but he wasn't great. Paul George, had that game 3 where he started off the game scorching hot and then was non-existent the rest of the game. Literally non-existent. That's not good enough. I'm sorry, that's not good enough. And so, and VJ Edgecombe, look, VJ was okay in the series, but, I mean, what are you expecting from VJ? I mean, what are you expecting? The guy had a really good rookie year. He was one of the best rookies in the NBA, and he had his moments in the playoffs, like Game 2 against the Celtics and some games here and there where, specifically against Boston where they needed him to step up, and he did. But, it's not like Edgecombe lit the world on fire this postseason. And, look, like I said, that's generally okay. I mean, he averaged 14 a game, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 41% from the field. It's fine for a rookie. I understand he was a top, he was a third overall pick, but at the same time, when you have other guys in this team like Joel, like Maxey, George, Oubre, and Quentin Grimes, who averaged over 20 a game last year, you're expecting those guys to step up, and they did not. So I can't look at VJ's performance and say, wow, VJ wasn't good enough. He needs to be better. Maybe going forward, in future years, but he's still, he's a 20-year-old rookie. It's It's not something that you can really look at VJ and say, like, man, he's a big problem. Like, no, man, he's a rookie, and he had a great rookie year. So, look, man, I mean, there's a bunch of things you can point to. Joel not being available, Maxey not being good enough, George not being good enough consistently. Yes, he was good in the Boston series, but in the New York series, not as good, kind of phased out a little bit. And the bench not being good enough, not rebounding. Oh, the rebounding's horrible. And I know that's something that was obviously a huge deal in the regular season, but, it's still something that I'm watching in this series against New York, and it's not like I'm not going to be frustrated. I'm like, oh, well, they've been a horrible rebounding team. Like, it's true, but like, it's hard to not watch and not be frustrated. It's hard to watch and be like, all right, well, they're just not good at rebounding. Like, it's like, no, this is a factor into why, they lost the series, and it was frustrating. So, I mean, that was a big key. It was a big key as to why they lost this series. So, that was a big part of it. So there was a lot of reasons as to why they lost the series. But, I expected them to, if they weren't going to win the series, that it was going to be a close one. And it wasn't. Game 2 was close. Game 3 for a while was close. But not good enough, man. Not good enough. So, while this season there were some back and forth expectations on to why there were some back and forth expectations, I think, between people on why they, either were not going to perform this year to a level that people think they could, or just not having expectations with the Joel thing, with Paul George not being healthy enough, but looking forward to Maxey and Edgecombe. At the end of the day, I don't know how I feel about it being a successful season or not. It's one of those things where it's like, for them to beat the Celtics the way they did, that's great. But still, at the end of the day, they didn't get past the second round. It's just tough with the Joel stuff. It's hard for me to sit here and say, like, I don't know if I can sit here and say it was a super successful season, because you don't know what you have with Joel, man. I mean, it's all about Joel. We all know that. It's all about Joel Embiid, and whether or not it's another season where he's not available enough. He's not available enough, and he was okay. Like, he was good, okay enough. Yeah, he did come up big in the Celtics series, and that's great. But like, now it's like we just okay, and then you go in the New York series, and it's okay. Well, he obviously can't sustain this. I don't know, man. And he's only getting older. Joel is only getting older. He's not getting any younger. So, it's frustrating, man. It's frustrating. So, I mean, Joel's 32 years old. I mean, he says that, they cracked the thing with the knee. Like, okay, the knee's getting better. Well, it's like, well, how do we know it's not going to come back? How do we know it's not going to come back? And, he's had, other injuries. It's really frustrating. And so, like, I don't know. It's hard to put a grade on the year. Like, the Boston series was great, and that was cool. In the moment, it was cool. It's just, there were people talking about, oh, yeah, we're ready for this team to go to the finals right after they beat Boston. And I was sitting there, I was like, I'm not ready to say that yet, because we still have to see this team with Joel do this for multiple rounds. And they just haven't been able to do it. And the Boston series was fun, man. The Boston series was fun. Like, that was cool the way they came back. It's just, you sit here after all this, and just frustrating, man. So it's really hard for me to say it's a successful season. It's really hard for me to say it was a successful season. And you're trying to find out more about how this team plays with Joel, and it's like, okay, he played 38 games this year. It's like a wash almost. That's how I feel. So yeah, that's how the Sixers season ended. With how the 76ers handled this Daryl Morey firing, I will say this. Do I think it was the wrong move to fire Daryl Morey? Not necessarily, but I think there are people that think Daryl Morey has done this like horrendous job. I don't think he has overall done a horrendous job with the Sixers. I think the Joel thing is a really tough dynamic. I think for any GM, it's a really tough dynamic. Him giving him the extension, do I think it was a great move? But I don't know, man. I think there were a lot of people when Daryl Morey decided to give Joel the extension, there wasn't anybody that was like up in arms, up in like, oh my God, they gave Joel this extension. He's an idiot. He's stupid. You know, it's, you know, when they gave Joel this contract extension, he was what? I guess he was 29 years old, right? Trying to see how old he was. I guess they gave him that, and they gave him the 3-year, 187 deal. They gave that to him, I guess I'm trying to think. It's an extension to 2023. So, yeah, I mean, he was 29 years old, or roughly around there. I mean, that's tough, man. Like, I'll go back in the timeline. Like, you know, Daryl Morey comes in, and, you know, the big move to me, where he doesn't get enough credit for, it feels like he doesn't get enough credit for now, is the fact that he moved Ben Simmons and was able to get James Harden. And people are like, oh, Tyrese Halliburton. Like, Halliburton wasn't... I don't know where this thing was coming from Halliburton being... Like, Halliburton wasn't a like, top prospect or anything like that. I didn't understand the... I mean, 12th overall pick. I didn't understand the Halliburton thing of where, like, people... It's not like... My whole thing is, like, it's not like people were looking to Tyrese Halliburton as... And look, I mean, obviously Halliburton has come out and has been a really good player, and he's unfortunately has been hurt this year and didn't play at all. But it's not like at the time where people were talking about, you know, potentially trading for Halliburton, like it was this big thing about, oh, Halliburton's got to be the guy to go get. It's not like people were clamoring for trading for Tyrese Halliburton. I'm sorry. So I don't... Like, trading for Harden, it was like, okay, let's try to put someone else with Embiid. And I understand that, you know, for the most part, for a while, for a bit of a while at that time, that was, 2020, what was it, 21, when they traded for Harden? It was either 21 or 22. It was 2021, I guess. It was the 2021-2022 season. And it was like, January, February, so it was technically early 2022. Like, it didn't work out, obviously, but it made sense to, okay, it was like, in Brooklyn, it was a weird fit for, and I understand Harden wanted out of Brooklyn and everything like that, but that didn't work out with Kyrie and KD. It didn't work out, obviously, in Houston, for all those years. But it was like, okay, it made sense for Harden to get another shot somewhere else. You know, I think after the Philadelphia thing, I can understand people wanting to, kind of get away from Harden. And, like, I don't know. We'll see how it fares with Cleveland here. They're going to a Game 7. We'll see how they fare at Cleveland, but we shall see. So with Game 7, but yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. The Harden thing, though, at the end of the day, the James Harden deal was, like, to me, it made sense at the time. And I know that's Daryl Morey's guy. I totally understand. I totally understand that James Harden is Daryl Morey's guy. Totally understand. But it made sense to try to pair Embiid and Harden. And at first, it looked cool. I thought it was going to be fun, and it didn't work out. Clearly, it didn't work out. All you can do as a GM is try to project and see if those things can work out. And it didn't, unfortunately. I think where Daryl Morey did lose me a little bit, and it wasn't the Paul George deal. Maybe the thing I will say that maybe Daryl Morey could have been more creative. The Paul George deal, it was fine to me. The Paul George deal was fine. He was one of the bigger names in the market. He could have been a little more creative to me. And where I will say the last year or two where Daryl Morey has started to lose me a little bit, and where I've become okay, I'm okay with the firing, is I think it was last year. Where either last year or 2 years ago, it might have been 2024 after the Knicks loss in that first round, where he talked about I think he said continuity didn't matter to him. Continuity just didn't matter. Continuity didn't matter, and continuity didn't matter. And I was like, what are you talking about? And it was more about getting superstars, and continuity didn't matter. And he started to lose me a little bit there. That made me upset. I was like, oh, maybe we don't have the right guy. And then this Jared McCain trade happened earlier this year. And all the things he said about them selling high on McCain. And then I was like, man, it's kind of hard for this guy to still be here after this deal. And the Sixers did that. And now you don't, now you made that deal. And I'm like, you know what, man? I don't think Daryl Morey is as bad as some people make him out to be. I know Paul Jolovitz is on this station sometimes, and I work with Paul at WIP, and he has been on the train of Daryl Morey sucks. He's the worst. He's terrible. And yeah. And I it's hard for me to argue with Jolly at this point after, the McCain thing, and even some of his comments, a couple of years ago after that press conference of how he kind of views the team. But it's something that is, has been frustrating with Daryl and the Philadelphia 76ers after that. So, all right. So coming up, I do want to get to, because I went a little long there on the Sixers, I do want to get back to some of the Flyers and some other things, but I do want to get some Josh Harris audio as well. So that's coming up right here on 95.3 WCHA. Welcome back. It is a Sport Trap right here on 95.3 WCHE. And you can listen to the show every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. with yours truly, Francisco Rojas. Yeah, man, I wanted to touch a lot on the Sixers and Flyers today just because of what, just because of this week. And then their seasons being over. So yeah, back to the Daryl Morey thing. Daryl, I do think it was the right move at the end of the day. I do. Unfortunately, I do. I don't think he's as bad as people said he was, but after the last couple of years, I'm not even the Paul George deal, just more about the idea of how Daryl wants to construct the team and doesn't really care about continuity and the bench and stuff like that. With him saying that stuff, it needed to be, better. We needed to go in a different direction. And here's my thing. I like the direction they're going in so far. And I know people are frustrated with the Sixers. I totally get it. Totally understand if you're frustrated with the Sixers. I totally get it. But at the end of the day, I do like a lot that Bob Myers is leading the search for the Sixers. Bob Myers won championships with the Golden State Warriors, decade plus there. I do like that, the idea of Bob Myers, and I'm not going to play audio from him for the press conference. I do want to play Josh Harris audio, but for Bob Myers, because Josh Harris isn't going to be he's leaving it to Bob Myers. He's his guy he's the brains for this. Bob Myers, I do trust. If you heard him talk in the press conference, he sounds like he cares about genuinely finding someone that's going to be able to do this job. It also sounded good that it sounds like he's going to have some involvement with, like, even just afterwards, just after hiring somebody, like he's actually going to, be heavily involved with, like, talking to whoever the president of basketball operations is going to be, on a day-to-day basis. He said, 5 out of the 7 days of the week on, a pretty daily basis. So that's pretty exciting. So am I super, duper, 100% confident that this thing is going to get turned around? It's still tough with Joel, man. Joel and Paul George, being older on his max deal. You do feel good about Tyrese and VJ for the most part. But we'll see, man. We'll see. But I do feel good about the Bob Myers front. I did want to play some audio from Josh Harris, because Josh Harris, man, he might have the most annoying voice on planet Earth. And he talked about some of the frustration, being asked about, some frustration that's coming from the fans and how he feels about it. Here's what he had to say.
A lot of criticism recently has been turned toward you, specifically fan frustration-wise. There have been some fans who've been thrown out of games recently for yelling things like "sell the team." I guess, what would you say to those people? Because I think some of that is about just the lack of success or lack of championship success, but also maybe some of the off-court things that have not been addressed by you.
Yeah, look, again, I think I'm very focused on, setting up the team and the club to push through the second round and go to the NBA championship and achieve our goals. And, I care deeply for the team. No one's more frustrated than I am. I understand people's frustration. And, this is, having, going out and getting, someone as talented as Bob to kind of, help Philly achieve its goals. This is the next step in our evolution. And so, all I can tell you is that I'm sweating it really hard. I'm sweating it just as hard or harder as any of the fans. But that's what I'm focused on. And, I understand people's frustration.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. There's 4 to 5 takeaways from what he said there, and about that, minute 15-second soundbite. What, I want to go one by one here about from what he said here specifically, and just in general how he was speaking at this press conference. Number one, clearly you are not sweating it as much as the fans are. The fans are, myself included as a fan, we are more frustrated than you are. You are still, Knicks fans were in the building. You're still, and he commented on the Knicks fans thing too and said, we didn't like it, blah, blah, blah. Knicks fans, or you're still making money from people coming out to these games. I still watch games. I still see the Xmo, the Xfinity Mobile Arena, pretty packed, right? And so you're still making money from the team. Regular season, postseason, people are still coming out to these games, whether they're Sixers fans or not, right? You're still making money from the team. Do I think he cares that the team was? Of course I think he cares, but for him to say I think he said it a couple of times in the press conference, for him to say that he's sweating it more than the fans are, that's just, not true. We all know that. You are not sweating it more than the fans that, have been watching this team for years, and especially through the process era. and you don't care as much. Let's be real. Not saying you don't care. I think you do, but you don't care as much as the fans. You are not, sweating it hard or harder than any of the fans. You are not. Like, that's just a fact. You are not. So that's number one. Number two, I've never seen, I don't think this is getting talked about enough. Like, he was sitting there. Maybe you could hear him, like, flipping through the... You're sitting there. He's flipping through notes. I've never seen that before. And he's doing it so, like, kind of a little bit awkward. I wouldn't say, like, a bunch awkwardly, but a little bit awkwardly. He's sitting there flipping through his notes. It's very odd. It's very odd. So, very odd thing to do. To be sitting there flipping through your notes. So, Josh Harris flipping through his notes. And, yeah, it's just very weird. He was flipping through his notes as he was, whatever you want to call it. You know, it was like he was like getting ready to do these questions, and he's flipping through his pages of notes. It's weird. Man, it's not getting, like, ripped enough, I feel like. I feel like maybe people don't take Josh Harris, like, all that, maybe seriously, so maybe that's why. But, you know, if this was, like, another, like, Jeffrey Lurie, or if this was, I don't know, like, some other executive of another team that you took seriously, I don't know. Not getting ripped enough. I think it's not, like, getting... Like, it's not being talked about enough. A little weird, man. A little weird. Not being, I feel like, ripped enough for it. Yeah, just a little odd. So, Josh Harris reading off script there, saying he's more more frustrated about the fans or frustrated about the team than the fans are. Like, come on, man. You're not. And there was a couple of more takeaways that I had, but now I completely forgot it. Because I'm just ticked off about some of the things that how Harris handled that. I forget. Maybe it'll come back to me. But that was Josh Harris on some of that. So look, at the end of the day, I feel good with Bob Myers at the helm here, that they're gonna look to find somebody that is going to be the right fit to lead this team. And I mean, look, it's another mess. The Ben Simmons thing was a mess. This is a mess here with Joel. I don't know about mess, but this is it's a tricky situation. It's how do you navigate this? How do we get this thing going in the right direction? So, we'll see, man. That's talked a lot about the Sixers so far today. Next, it's heavily Philly sports today, just because I kind of wanted to talk about the Sixers and Flyers end of their seasons, and as well as the Phils and the Eagles with their schedule. But heavy on that stuff today. But the Flyers, man, I actually, me and my mom ended up going to the game last Saturday at the Xfinity Mobile Arena for Game 4. I got pretty good price on some lower level seats, and I took my mom as a Mother's Day gift. So it was a really awesome time, and it was a really, really great time. Even though they lost, man, it was a great game. Went to OT, and for me, I got to see that. It's something as simple as this. Something as simple and stupid as this. I know. And maybe there's people that are going to say, oh, it's stupid, or maybe there's people that can relate, but it is what it is. For me, like, the one thing that I think makes hockey unique in the way that sometimes their series ends in the playoffs is that every time a series ends, not just the Stanley Cup final, they have the handshake line. And you see it in the Olympics, too. You know, when the U.S. beat Canada in the gold medal game. You saw it there, too, as well. That with the handshake, you have the handshake line. And for me, it was like, okay, Flyers probably aren't coming back in the series against Carolina, but maybe there's a chance that it could happen. But at the end of the day, if they lose in Game 4, but my point is, like, either we get to see a win, and that's great, or if they lose, hopefully it's in a close fashion, which it was. I get to see the handshake line. And look, man, the only thing that would have made going to that game last Saturday better was if they had won in overtime. If they had won, that's the only thing that would have made it better. But I saw a great game, and I got to see the handshake line live. Look, you don't see that in any other sports. In the NBA, guys like dap up after the game. In Major League Baseball, you don't see it because the team celebrates on the on the field. You don't see in Major League Baseball. In the NFL, yeah, guys dap up, just kind of similar to the NBA. It's the coaches meet at the head coaches meet at midfield, and they exchange congrats, good job, great game, whatever. But hockey is the only sport that you see in the playoffs and the Olympics too, in the gold medal games. I would assume maybe the bronze medal game too. That teams dap up or to have the handshake line, just like Little League, man. Like Little League, you have Little League, basketball. Like you have a handshake line. I don't think I ever did roller hockey. I played roller hockey. I don't think there was like a handshake line. I forget there was a handshake line. I feel like maybe there was. Maybe there was. I kind of forget, to be honest with you. Maybe I have to go back and look at if there's any footage. But that was a cool thing. So at the end of the day, here's how I feel about the end of the Flyers season. Completely different than the Sixers. Obviously a successful season. Obviously 110% successful. And it's unbelievable to because it's just been a whirlwind with especially the Flyers. Not as much the Sixers, but it was for a second with the Celtics series. Like, oh my gosh, they came back. But it was a whirlwind with the Philadelphia Flyers on how they, from the Olympic break, and even more just with Mark, especially with Martone coming in and getting Forrester back, and how they made the playoffs. I mean, that was oh my gosh, what is happening? Your mind's racing, your mind's blown. Oh my gosh, what is happening? And then they face off against Pittsburgh, and then they win that series in 6. And it's oh my gosh, it was such a whirlwind. Didn't expect them to beat Carolina. I don't think anyone did. It was oh my gosh, all right, look, at the end of the day, we're not expecting them to beat Carolina, but yeah, it's wow. So, I mean, that was a complete whirlwind. And, man, again, successful season for the circumstances. And, again, coming back from, where you were in January, where they were down at the, January or February, where they were, right before the Olympic break, where they were at the bottom of the league, bottom of the Eastern Conference, and it was okay, they're not, this is, I was ready to really start talking about Keith Jones and Danny Briere being in the hot seat. And a lot of fans already thought that they were, but I was willing to be a tiny bit more patient than some other fans. And, man, it's just a complete whirlwind. A complete whirlwind from that even. It's oh my gosh. So that's what I'm saying about the Flyers. Oh my gosh. It went from 2 months ago talking about, Briere and Jonesy are even the right guys. Man, they're not doing a good job, to Martone and Forrester coming back, to wow, maybe there's something to this team going forward. And Dan Vladar, maybe he's really the guy, especially if he performed in the playoffs. Maybe he is our franchise goalie going forward. Maybe not for 10 years, but for maybe the foreseeable future for the next 2 to 3 years. So, wow, and you're really excited about what this Flyers team could be going forward. I don't know. I mean, they still have work to do. I will say this. At the end of the day, they exceeded expectations. But, man, now they're going to be the expectations there now for them to make the playoffs. I'm not ready to say, like, oh, now I'm expecting this team to go make the next step to get to the Eastern Conference Finals and make to the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm not there yet. I don't think, I'm honestly, right now, depending on what they do this offseason, right now, I don't even think it would be like a failure if they now I think it would be a step back if they miss the playoffs. But first, second round next year, it just depends. Like they need to. I mean, this is a big offseason. I don't know if it's Austin Matthews. I'm not sure how in love I am in that idea now. He just coming off the injury this year. Never had too much playoff success with Toronto, but I mean, you saw Mitch Marner leave the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now he's in the Western Conference Finals with Vegas. So maybe that's something. Maybe there's a degree of that as well. So I don't know, but my whole thing is I don't know what I'd be willing to give up for Austin Matthews. Like if Martone's in that deal, I don't want to give up Porter Martone and an Austin Matthews deal. So I'm not sure how in love I am in the idea of that. But I don't know how much I'm in love with Austin Matthews, but they need a guy. Look, man, at the end of the day, they need a player that's going to quarterback the power play. They need a player. They need like another goal scorer or something. Like Zegras, really good player, good playmaker, and we know how good we saw how good he was this year. Owen Tippett, good player. Hopefully, maybe he can be somebody that makes the next step. Tyson Forster, maybe he can be a goal scorer for this team going forward. But I think we can all agree out there they need another offensive player, and in particular a goal scorer, probably. TK, really good player, but he's not a 40-goal scorer. I think they need another guy, and it's probably another center. I mean, Austin Matthews, he is another center. So, I mean, the fit in that sense makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. But we'll see, man. Maybe he's somebody like Mitch Marner that could use a bit of a change of scenery. So we shall see. But the Flyers, man, overall, the Flyers, it was a successful season, and it was overachieving. They overachieved. So the Philadelphia Flyers, I am really excited about the future, but they do need to make some additions here, especially offensively and the power play. So we'll see. And the other one is Matvei Michkov. Don't want to forget about Matvei Michkov. I mean, Michkov, let's be real. I mean, let's take it for what it is. Going from your rookie year where you were more consistent and you put up almost, what it was, like a point per game in your, not a point per game, but it was 63 points. It was better. 26 goals, 37 assists. It was much better. To the up and down year you had in year two, it's a big year for Michkov. It's a big year. I know he's only 21. I get that. But he was a top 10 pick, and he is somebody that the Flyers are looking to, be a part of the future of the franchise in a big way. Look, man, I'm not going to totally excuse Matvei Michkov. So, but it is a big year for Matvei Michkov. What is he going to do to, hopefully if they get to the playoffs again next year, that he can't, I wasn't so much worried about Game 1 and Game 2 against Pittsburgh in the first round. But once you got to Game 3, even though they won that game, I kind of noticed, I was like, Michkov, I haven't noticed him, right? Like, I was thinking about, like, Martone, Sanheim, Couturier, guys like that you were noticing throughout those series. And like you were noticing those guys. And I was just sitting there and I was like, huh, like I don't really notice Michkov. I've kind of just like, and it kind of was like in the back of my mind, because in the front of my mind it's like, oh my gosh, they're winning, and they're like, holy crap, they're potentially going to sweep the Penguins, which they did, and they won in 6 games. But you were sitting there thinking about it, and you were like, or at least from my perspective, I was like, huh, like, you know, you're noticing these guys, and you know, Vladar, obviously, who you noticed all year long, but it's like, wow, you know, the playoffs here, like, oh, I haven't noticed Matvei Michkov, and Forster kind of too. Forster, you didn't notice Tyson Forster either. But again, Michkov the bigger name, clearly. You're just noticing these players, but you weren't noticing Michkov. And I want to, hopefully this time next year, when they're in the playoffs again, hopefully, that I'm noticing Michkov make an impact. You know, that I'm noticing him make an impact for the Philadelphia Flyers. So Michkov, that is going to be obviously something that we are monitoring heading into next season. But also with the Flyers, we had to note this. The Flyers, it's unbelievable what some of these players go through. I remember Ivan Provorov after that 2018 series against the Penguins. He had a separated shoulder that he played through. And I just want to read off to you. This is directly from the Flyers website. Injury updates from Flyers general manager Danny Briere. This is some of the stuff. Hockey players, football players too, but hockey players, it seems like, just built different from everybody else. Emil Andre played through a fractured wrist. He's going to require surgery. Alex Bump played through an MCL sprain. Noah Cates, obviously he was out for the rest of the Carolina series. Didn't even play in all the Carolina series, right? Pretty sure. Fractured foot. No surgery required, but a fractured foot. Christian Dvorak, fractured rib and a separated shoulder. Nikita Grabenkin, upper body injury. Garnet Hathaway, fractured fibula. Travis Konechny, fractured rib, nasal fracture. Owen Tippett, who didn't play at all in the series, internal bleeding, core muscle injury. And that, my goodness. Cam York, fractured rib. Trevor Zegras, elbow ligament sprain. Are you kidding me? Hockey players just built different. You think about Dvorak, he had the black eye, in the playoffs too. Fractured rib, separated shoulder, and a black eye. Unbelievable what these players play through. I remember specifically Provorov playing through that separated shoulder. Came out after the series against the Penguins. And these guys are all it's just unbelievable what these hockey players play through. It is different, man. It is 110% different. Hockey players are just built different. And this is what look, at the end of the day, do I necessarily condone this in a way? I'm not going to sit here and say I do, because I know that's not what some people want to hear. Some people want to hear, like, oh, it's sports, you got to be tough. I agree with that to a certain extent, but also, like, look, the hockey players are just built different. I'll say that. You wish that some other sports, like basketball, especially like basketball, that some of these guys would kind of take some of the stuff from hockey players. Because I think it's also with hockey, especially, like, there's that level of, like, you play through whatever for your teammates to go try to win that Stanley Cup. And you also heard it from these Flyers players after the series, like, they legitimately thought that they maybe had a chance to go get to the Cup, which is what you love to hear and what you want to hear, going forward for the team as well. Like, you want to hear that. You 1,000% want to hear that. So, unbelievable what these players play through. A couple other things I wanted to hit on before we get out of here. I wanted to play some audio. Well, first things first, I wanted to say rest in peace to Joe Sensor. He was a former Westchester University two athlete star, and he unfortunately just passed away at the age of 69. Westchester graduate, played both basketball and football, and fortunately passed away at the age of 69. And he was a former Pro Bowl tight end for the Minnesota Vikings, playing 4 seasons for the Vikings, 80, 81, 82, and 84. He was injured in 83 with a knee injury. And, so that was unfortunate to hear, but a former Westchester University graduate passing away that played in the NFL for the Minnesota Vikings, making the Pro Bowl in 1981, where he had 79 catches for over 1,000 yards. So rest in peace to Joe Sensor. But I wanted to play this real quick before we got out of here. So Anthony Edwards, after the Spurs advance to the Western Conference Finals, they're going to play the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Spurs, advancing, but Anthony Edwards, with about 8 minutes left on the Amazon Prime broadcast, was seen dapping players up, dapping the Spurs bench up with 8 minutes left because they were up by like 33, I believe it was. And, man, 8 minutes left was like, all right, good game. A bit of a weird thing. This was Udonis Haslem, former Heat player and analyst on Amazon Prime. Now, here is what he had to say about Anthony Edwards going to shake hands with some of the Spurs players' bench.
You would think that a team that has been there, they would have those habits. So the fact that they don't have those habits are very disappointing to me. Because once you get here, and I say this all the time, the playoffs has a way of revealing what's inside you. And I didn't like what I saw from some of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Mm-hmm. Ant was definitely hobbled. DiVincenzo was out. But some of the things I saw I didn't like. And what I will say is great as Ant is as a basketball player, there's still some growth for him as well. Because as a leader, I would not have walked down there and shook their hand. I would not have walked down there and shook their hand with 8 minutes left in the game. As a leader of my troops and my guys, I would not show that weakness. The game is not over. I got 8 minutes left. I still got smoke coming out of my ears because I'm so damn mad we losing. Let me calm down for those 8 minutes since I'm not in, and then after those 8 minutes, I'll go down there and I'll congratulate them and their coaching staff. But in the middle of the game, when I got guys that have sat the bench and cheered me on, no, I'm going to sit there and cheer those guys on. I'm going to put that energy back into those guys, and then when the game's over, I'll go over there and shake their hands. So that's just the way I handle things. I'm a little bit different. I'm a little bit old school. I understand there's a different generation, but I don't think if they were beating San Antonio, Wemby would have went down there and shook his hand with 8 minutes left. I don't think so. I damn sure know Wemby wouldn't have went down there and shook his hand.
I don't even know if that's old school.
So for me, I love Ant-Man as a basketball player. I love where he's going to be as a basketball player, but as a leader, the next few steps he needs to make are little small details and things like that, because other people on your team and those guys are always watching you and they're following you whether you know it or not.
Yeah, very smart, I thought, comments from Udonis Haslem on what he had to say about Anthony Edwards, and it's going to be the Spurs and the Thunder. I think we've all wanted that in the Western Conference Finals. So we shall see it. That obviously the Thunder will be favored, but hopefully we get a good series between the Thunder and the Spurs. All right, that will do it for another edition of the Sports Wrap right here on 95.3 WCHE. Make sure you tune in every single Saturday, 10 to 11 a.m. You can listen online at 953wche.com and go to the podcast category, and you can listen to these shows. That will do it for me, and I'll talk to you guys soon.